As we're talking to you here at 7, we're only about 28 hours away from a possible strike between several automakers. One of them is a big one, General Motors, and they do have a plant in Arlington, so there's a local impact to this.
Yeah, and they employ a whole lot of people locally. And today, union president for those workers did reveal online, on Facebook, in fact, how this could all play out if, in fact, it does happen. His name is Sean Fain. He described a new tactic they're going to use. It's called stand-up strike. What that means is the strike won't happen everywhere all at once, basically the way we're all used to seeing it. Instead, the union would pick a handful of locations at a time, and then if needed, he says, increase pressure. What that means is more others going on strike. So the bottom line is we may or we may not see a strike in Arlington if they ultimately do go on strike. So the stand-up strike, as they call it, depends on, of course, if the union can come to an agreement with the automakers. And the drop-dead time is 10:59 p.m. tomorrow.
So it's not just General Motors here. We're also talking about Ford and Stellantis. And you might be thinking, what do they want? What does the union, or I should say the United Auto Workers Union, want to see? Well, they want a part of a new deal to happen, and part of that new deal is a 46% pay raise. They want a 32-hour work week with 40 hours of pay, and they want their traditional pensions to be restored. And our Robbie Owens has been on this story. Robbie, you're in Arlington near that GM plant tonight.
So the big question, hopefully communicated with some local workers, are they ready to walk out if in fact a strike is called for them here?
Well, the short answer, Doug and Nicole, yes. I'm told that local GM workers have been gathering to make those picket signs and get instructions on where and when to report for picket duty. Meanwhile, the national UAW president has said that workers don't want to strike, but will if they have to. We learned late this afternoon that the big three automakers have come up on those initial wage offerings to the union, but apparently the two sides still remain far apart on other union demands.
Yeah, when it comes to unions, historically we know unions as a collective group prepare for the possibility of strikes. They already have plans in place to support those workers financially if they go out on strike, because they're not going to get a paycheck. But the bottom line is anything like that action could have a ripple effect.
Yeah, we're all being reminded today this is not just going to impact the plant in Arlington. It actually, Robbie, kind of has like a economic domino effect of other consequences surrounding this possible strike, right?
That's an excellent point. And yes, workers and families who don't get a vote in these strike negotiations will in fact be impacted in a big way. I spoke with one North Texan earlier today. He tells me that he works at a company that makes parts for this plant, and he's very well aware that, well, if workers here are out on strike, they're not making cars, so they don't need parts. So that means, well, him and his colleagues are also out of work, and he's very worried about that. There's a mom and pop restaurant just down the street here. They told me today that, you know, they depend on these workers coming in for lunch or picking up dinner on the way home, and the delivery drivers that come down the street and stop off for lunch only because they're coming to this plant. So yes, a tremendous amount of economic impacts that will ripple throughout North Texas. That young man I spoke with who's worried about them going on strike because he makes parts for GM, he says he's already starting to cut back on spending just as a precaution. A lot of people probably doing that right now.